Everything you think you know about surviving the cold is wrong. Every layered fleece jacket, every hand warmer, every emergency Mylar blanket, all of it a pale shadow of a system that was perfected 200 years ago by men who had none of those things and survived conditions that would kill most people in hours. Between 1810 and 1840, roughly 3,000 fur trappers operated across the Rocky Mountains in temperatures that plunged well below zero for months at a stretch. No GPS, no synthetic insulation, no emergency contacts. And yet they survived season after brutal season, using 15 methods so effective that the knowledge feels almost criminal to have forgotten. The question isn't whether these methods worked. The question is why nobody ever told you about them. Picture the winter of 1836 on the Yellowstone River. Oh, the mercury hasn't climbed above zero in 3 weeks. Snow has buried the valley floor to the depth of a man's chest. And there, in the center of a camp of 6 men, sits Osborne Russell, 22 years old, trapping with Jim Bridger's brigade, writing in his journal by firelight. He is not miserable. He is not desperate. He describes the scene calmly, a snug skin lodge in the center of which a fire burns steadily. The men fed, the horses alive on cottonwood bark, the furs accumulating. He and his companions are not merely surviving the Yellowstone winter. They are living inside it as though they own it. No factory made the roof over their heads. No supply chain kept them fed. And yet here is the thing that should stop you cold. Not one of them died. What did they know that we've completely forgotten? That's exactly what we're going to find out today. Before we get into it, drop a comment right now and tell me, have you ever been genuinely caught off guard by the cold? Caught unprepared in weather you thought you could handle? Because what you're about to discover will completely change how you see what preparation actually means. And stick around, because method number 7 is the one that changed everything for me when I first read about it. Here's what modern survival culture gets wrong. It sells you products, individual products for individual problems, a jacket for warmth, a lighter for fire, a protein bar for calories. Each item exists in isolation, designed and marketed as though survival is a checklist of purchases, and none of it is wrong exactly, but all of it misses the point. Because the mountain men didn't have a collection of products, they had a system. Every element of their survival interlocked with every other element. The fat they rendered from a bear kept their leather dry, fed their fire, protected their skin, and powered their bodies through February. It was one substance solving 5 problems simultaneously. That's not resourcefulness, that's engineering. And the modern outdoor industry, which makes its money selling you the next thing, has absolutely no incentive to tell you that the old integrated system was better than anything they're currently selling. And here's the part that should make you genuinely angry. This knowledge was never lost. It was documented, obsessively documented. Osborne Russell kept a journal for 9 years in the Rockies. Rufus Sage wrote a memoir. George Ruxton traveled with mountain men and recorded everything he witnessed. James Kleiman wrote about nearly dying in a blizzard with his bare hands on a flint striker. This material was sitting in libraries and archives the entire time. The system wasn't buried. It was just inconvenient for the people who wanted to sell you something else. You were not bad at surviving. You were just given a broken set of instructions. So let's go through all 15 methods. Every one of them is real. Every one of them is documented. And every one of them still works today. Method 1. Site selection before shelter construction. Mountain men understood that where you sleep matters more than what you sleep under. Rufus Sage documented the precise criteria: shelter from hills or rock formations for warmth, concealment from hostile eyes, a proximity to dry timber, and a nearby watercourse. Osborne Russell's winter camps were always along heavily timbered river bottoms, where horses could strip cottonwood bark for feed. They didn't set up camp and then look for resources. They found the resources first and built their camp around them. The site was the first survival decision, and it was the most important one. Method 2. The skin lodge as precision thermal engineering. The The tepee was not a primitive tent. It was a mathematically optimized thermal structure. Russell recorded that a lodge holding 6 men with a central fire produced and retained enough heat to be genuinely comfortable through Yellowstone winters. The conical shape drove smoke upward through the smoke hole. The hide walls, dressed buffalo skin, up to 12 hides per lodge, were nearly windproof and shed snow. The door faced away from prevailing winds. A liner hung on the interior walls created an insulating air gap. This was not folk architecture. This was centuries of trial and error engineering expressed in animal skin and wooden poles, and it outperformed every canvas tent the U.S. Army issued for another 100 years. Method 3. Fire making with flint, steel, and punk wood. Every mountain man carried what they called a possible sack, a small leather pouch on his belt containing a fire steel, a flint, and pieces of punk wood. Punk wood was the key. It was soft, spongy material taken from rotting cottonwood logs, dried and then charred until it was blackened throughout. George Ruxton documented the process in precise detail. The punk was lit by striking steel to flint, dropped into a nest of dry grass, and the nest was swung in the air until the grass ignited. Research by the American Mountain Men Organization confirms punk was the preferred tinder over charcloth in the field because punk could be found and prepared anywhere there were cottonwoods. James Kleiman, caught in a Wind River blizzard with numb hands that couldn't grip a striker, saved 2 lives by finding a coal no larger than a grain of corn buried in old ash and breathing it back to life. That's not luck. That's a man who understood fire deeply enough to see what others would have walked past. Method 4. Rendered animal fat as the universal tool. Bear grease is where things get remarkable. After a successful bear hunt, the thick white subcutaneous fat was cut from the ribs and hams, heated slowly in a kettle with constant stirring, and strained clean. The result was a clear amber substance that set up pure white at room temperature and stored for up to 6 months without refrigeration. Mountain men rubbed it on boot leather and moccasins for waterproofing. They cooked with it, noting that salmon trout fried in bear oil tasted extraordinary. They applied it to exposed skin as frostbite protection, a practice taken directly from Native American traditions. They burned it for lamp fuel. Meriwether Lewis used it to lubricate chronometer mechanisms. It was one substance doing the work of 6 modern products, and it was free, abundant, and produced by the same animal that fed them. Method 5. The layered clothing system. The mountain man's winter outfit was not a single garment. It was a precisely assembled thermal stack. Rufus Sage documented its components: a brain-tan buckskin base for wind resistance, a capote hood coat sewn from a single Hudson's Bay Company wool blanket for insulating warmth, and over everything a buffalo robe worn native style draped across the shoulders. Buckskin had one dangerous flaw: it became brutally heavy when wet and shrank as it dried, sometimes painfully constricting the limbs. David Lavender recorded that trappers actively preferred wool precisely because it retained warmth when wet and didn't shrink around sleeping joints. The system was built knowing that wool and buckskin failed in different conditions, and together they covered everything. At the feet, moccasins stuffed with dried grass or beaver fur, waterproofed with bear grease, sometimes worn 2 layers deep in the coldest conditions. Method 6. Pemmican, the food that stored energy for months. The word comes from the Cree language, and the food was adopted entirely from Native American practice. Lean buffalo meat was dried on cottonwood racks, pounded to powder, mixed with melted tallow at roughly equal parts meat to fat by weight, packed into rawhide parfleches, and sealed airtight with more tallow. The result delivered somewhere around 4,000 calories per pound and remained viable for years. It was so nutritionally powerful and logistically critical that control over its supply sparked an actual war. The Pemmican War of 1814 between 2 fur trade companies. When pemmican ran out, mountain men ate boiled rawhide, the soles of their moccasins, and the grease from their gun stocks. Joe Meek recorded submerging his hands in anthills and licking off the insects. Jedediah Smith wrote about days without food, grateful for a few roots or snails. They weren't reckless. They were trained by experience to stretch nothing further than modern people can stretch plenty. Method 7. The fat imperative, avoiding rabbit starvation. Here's where it gets worse than you think. Hudson's Bay Company records document cases of trappers dying with full stomachs. They were eating, but eating the wrong ratio of nutrients. The condition is called rabbit starvation or protein poisoning. Wild rabbit, abundant and easy to catch, carries barely 8% fat. A man living on rabbit alone is starving metabolically, even while his stomach is full. Symptoms appear within days: insatiable hunger for fat, then diarrhea and headache, then organ failure. Mountain men understood this intuitively. They prioritized the fattiest parts of every animal: beaver tail, bear meat, the dapuya along the buffalo's hump, the marrow cracked from leg bones. They ate liver raw. They ate yards of intestine at a sitting, racing their companions toward the middle in the grease-coated pageant George Ruxton documented with barely contained delight. They weren't being barbaric. They were being precise. Fat was the metabolic fuel that made everything else function in the cold. Lean protein alone, no matter how much of it you ate, would not keep you warm. Method 8. The reflector fire and the shanty shelter. For a trapper caught alone in a storm, the shanty was the standard emergency structure. Rufus Sage described it: skins or blankets stretched over a semicircular pole framework, open at the front, facing directly into a large fire. The reflector principle is straightforward. The angled back wall bounces radiated heat toward the sleeper in a concentrated wave. Historical reenactors have tested this in the Uinta Mountains at single-digit temperatures, using only period-correct materials: layered buffalo robes, wool blankets, and a reflector fire. They slept warm. Modern synthetic sleeping bags, rated to the same temperatures, perform no better and in some cases worse. The mountain men didn't know the physics of thermal radiation. They knew that this arrangement worked, and they practiced it consistently. Method 9. Heated rocks and sleeping hot. Football-sized stones were heated in a fire for 1 to 2 hours, placed in a shallow trench, covered with several inches of packed earth, and slept upon directly. The stored thermal mass radiated steady heat through the night, 5 to 7 hours of gentle warmth from the ground up, which is exactly the direction that matters most. Alternatively, heated rocks wrapped in cloth were placed inside the sleeping robes themselves. This technique appears across every indigenous winter survival tradition on the continent. From the Shoshone to the Ojibwe to the Chugach, the mountain men took it and used it without modification because it needed none. Method 10. The underground cache system. The most detailed primary record of cache construction comes from Meriwether Lewis's journal, dated June 9, 1805, describing a technique taught by the French-Canadian trapper Pierre Cruzat. A circle of sod 20 inches across was removed intact and set aside. The hole was dug straight down 1 foot, then gradually widened as it deepened to 6 or 7 feet, shaped, as Lewis wrote, almost like a teapot. The floor was lined with dry sticks and rawhide. Furs, gunpowder, food, and trade goods were packed inside without touching the walls. The original sod plug was replaced and blended into the surrounding ground. A skilled cache was invisible. Trappers used tree blazes and compass bearings to relocate them months later under feet of snow. This was not improvisation. This was a formal, standardized system, so trusted that Cache Valley in present-day Utah takes its name from the fur trade caches that lined its floor. Method 11. Snowshoes and winter travel technique. Moving through deep snow without snowshoes burns 3 to 4 times the calories of normal walking and exhausts a man in hours. Mountain men adopted the Athabascan and Shoshone design, a bent wood frame of white ash or birch laced with rawhide webbing, roughly 2 feet wide and 4 feet long, with a simple toe binding of leather. The technique was equally important: a rolling, wide-legged stride that lifted the snowshoe clear with each step rather than dragging it. Moving single file, the lead man broke trail and rotated to the rear every few hundred yards. Traveling in this disciplined formation, a party could cover 15 to 20 miles per day through terrain that would be impassable otherwise. Method 12. River navigation as winter highway. Frozen rivers were highways. Their smooth, straight, level surfaces allowed faster travel than any overland route through snow-choked forest. Jim Bridger, navigating a stretch of the Bear River in fall 1824 aboard a bullboat, a round, coracle-like vessel of buffalo hide stretched over a willow frame, became the first recorded Euro-American to sight the Great Salt Lake. Bullboats weighed about 30 pounds, could be built in a single day from materials available anywhere along a river, and were stable enough to ferry full loads of furs. When no boat existed, trappers stripped naked, tied their gear into a floating bundle on a buffalo hide, and swam pushing the bundle ahead, holding a rifle above the waterline with one free hand. Method 13. Reading weather before it arrived. Smoke behavior was a primitive but accurate barometer. Smoke falling to the ground, rather than rising straight, signaled dropping atmospheric pressure and approaching storm. Moon halos and sundogs, produced by ice crystals in high cirrus clouds, predicted severe weather within 24 to 48 hours. Animal behavior was read constantly, birds flying unusually low, horses growing nervous, the silence that falls over a forest before a major storm. The crow observed muskrat lodge construction to forecast winter severity. Among the Chugach, a specialist called the Sky Person, described in their records as an old man of profound experience, would lie on the frozen ground for hours studying cloud speed and shape before issuing a weather forecast for the village. Mountain men absorbed these reading skills through years of close living with native peoples and treated them as literally life or death information, because they were. Method 14. The psychological system. Purpose, story, and controlled rage. The body does not survive alone. James Kleiman's accounts of near-death cold exposure make clear that the will to survive is itself a survival method. Hugh Glass, mauled by a grizzly in 1823 on the Grand River. Broken leg, exposed ribs, punctured throat, scalp torn loose, was abandoned by his companions and left to die. He crawled 200 miles in 6 weeks sustained, his biographers conclude, by a single consuming emotion, the desire for revenge against the men who had abandoned him. He reached Fort Kiowa alive. He eventually forgave the teenage Jim Bridger, but the rage kept him moving when nothing physiological could explain why he hadn't died. George Ruxton captured the deeper psychological current running beneath all of it. Scarcely did I ever wish to change such hours of freedom for all the luxuries of civilized life. The mountain men were not suffering. They were, as Ruxton understood, more alive than they had ever been. That sense of aliveness, of total engagement with existence, is itself a physiological survival asset. People who have a reason to be where they are do not give up. Method 15. The debt to native knowledge, and why none of this would have existed without it. Every single method on this list has roots in indigenous knowledge. Pemmican is a Cree invention. The taipi was engineered by Plains tribes across centuries. Snowshoe design came from the Athabascan people. Cache construction was standard practice among the Mandan and Hidatsa. Weather reading was formalized in tribal traditions from the Sioux to the Chugach. The transfer happened through deep personal relationships. Jim Bridger married 3 native women over his career, a Flathead, a Ute, and a Shoshone. Kit Carson married an Arapaho woman named Wanibi at the 1836 Green River Rendezvous. James Beckworth lived among the Crow for so long he became a war chief. Joe Meek acknowledged openly that the only authority the free trapper acknowledged was that of his Indian spouse, who generally ruled the lodge. One rendezvous organizer, speaking bluntly to a modern audience, put it simply, mountain men could never have survived without Indians. Period. Every one of them would have died. That's not an exaggeration. It is precisely what the historical record shows. If this is genuinely changing how you see survival, human ingenuity, and the depth of indigenous knowledge that built the American West, hit like right now. because this channel exists to dig up exactly this kind of buried, practical, profound history. So, what do you do with all of this? Where do you actually start? If you want to go deep, start with the journals. Osborne Russell's Journal of a Trapper covers 9 years in the Rockies between 1834 and 1843 and reads like a survival manual, wrapped in one of the most quietly compelling memoirs ever written. George Ruxton's Life in the Far West will make you understand the fat imperative and the psychological system better than any modern survivalist book. Both are in the public domain and available for free. If you want practical application, start with the integrated principle. Stop buying individual products and start building systems. Fat and heat and shelter as one interlocking architecture, not 3 separate problems requiring 3 separate purchases. And if you want a minimum viable takeaway, learn to render tallow. A $2 pound of beef suet rendered in an afternoon on a stovetop gives you a substance that waterproofs leather, stores calories, burns as a candle, and lubricates every metal mechanism you own. One substance, 5 problems. The mountain men understood that. The modern outdoor industry does not want you to. The mountain men were not primitive. They were masters of physics they couldn't name, of biology they couldn't diagram, of psychology they never had a word for. They knew the cold the way a craftsman knows his material, with respect, with specificity, with a system built from hard-won experience across generations of people who came before them. The knowledge was never lost. It was just inconvenient for the people selling you something else. Subscribe to this channel because we are digging up exactly this kind of forgotten, practical, powerful history every single week. And tell us in the comments, what subject do you want us to investigate next? What knowledge do you think has been buried, abandoned, or deliberately left behind? We'll see you in the next one.